multiverses, and time travel. Two concepts that have spawned many a debate over just exactly what the fuck they do exactly. Every film, more or less, has their own interpretation when traveling between times, realms, realities, etc. They'll usually have their own specific rules for cause and effect of performing such acts in these particular films. You kill all your multiverse counterparts, you absorb their strength, you become the one. You have films that give you a simple explanation. There's a portal where travel between multiverses takes place without having to dive too deep into it. Pretty straightforward, right? Now, what happens when you take a concept that has decades of intertwining and moving parts within a particular world and attempt to base an entire film around it? You get the convoluted beast that is Doctor Strange into the Multiverse of Madness. A slightly bloated, worse than you think about it film that continues the standard of the MCU's erasure of the true origin and purposes of yet another handful of entities and events for the sake of a single film's throwaway plot devices? I know it sounds like I'm about to dunk on the MCU yet again, but I actually did have a bit of fun with certain moments in the film. So before I get to the bad and downright inconsistent, I'll lay out what this latest entry into the Phase 4 actually managed to do right. For the most part. Sam Raimi's return to the superhero genre was not the suffocating generic project that Disney has enacted over every project since Tony's final snap. By now, most of the MCU fanbase consists primarily of kids, the parents who have to take their kids, and the MCU fans who have fully accepted this cinematic universe as the one they choose to follow, for better or worse. Now, where this film may have caught many viewers off guard was the obvious influence of the director. Sam Raimi's notoriety in the superhero world is well known, considering how much fucking bank No Way Home made off the back of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's appearances. The unknown works of art in Sam Raimi's catalog, such as the cult classic franchise Evil Dead, make their way into the multiverse of madness in more ways than one. You only need to watch a Sam Raimi film once to see he has a very particular style of directing and shooting. Plenty of off-angle shots, first-person POVs with plenty of tracking shots attached to them, and lots of close-up shots. Raimi really loves his close-ups. It's Raimi's bread and butter, and I was pretty enthused when they were included in tense moments. Raimi's pedigree as a horror director was allowed to flourish in a superhero genre whose closest attempt at making anything or anyone scary was, well, it doesn't really exist. We all know the cookie-cutter formula by now. Light-hearted, everyone cracks wise even during severely tense life or death moments, and rinse and repeat without taking much risk. Well, Raimi didn't get that fucking memo. Characters were eviscerated, mutilated, and very much dying on screen for every little fucking 7-year-old in the audience to witness. There was actually a whole lot of blood everywhere. I've nearly forgotten if Disney allowed anyone in their films to show a little blood every now and again. This film made up for it. But Raimi fans weren't done giggling like little schoolgirls just yet. We were finally gifted the return of Bruce Campbell's immaculate cameos and the quick but noticeable appearance of one special classic Delta. We were happy campers. The acting across the board was above the usual MCU average. Of course, Benedict Cumberbatch was once again maintaining the same charisma and poise that we've all come to enjoy as Doctor Strange. Xochitl Gomez's America Chavez brought something refreshing to the table. A traumatized teenager with gifts and abilities they were still learning to balance, while also carrying the burden of the responsibility they come with. You did get that exact sense through her portrayal of the character. She wasn't overly arrogant or snide or out to prove that she can do anything on her own. She was human and relatable, which has become a rarity in storytelling within the MCU. And of course, we saved the best for last. Elizabeth Olsen's popularity pretty much catapulted to new heights following her performance in the WandaVision miniseries. Well, she continued to strut her stuff as the now homicidal Scarlet Witch, bent on trying to bring back the children she never really had. Granted, having Wanda completely undo the redemption she achieved at the end of WandaVision didn't really coincide with what seemed to be a particular direction Disney was going, but it did allow for one of the more intimidating antagonists in the MCU since maybe Thanos. There's no other way to describe it. She was the monster in a horror film. That's exactly what Sam Raimi intended to give us, and he was well equipped for the job. The CGI held up pretty well throughout the film. It's always been one of the few strong suits of Disney, so there wasn't really any surprise there. All the various spells, creatures, and powers being used throughout the film were visually pleasing. Unfortunately, this is where the good times end. Now we venture into the many, many things this film got wrong. Grab your popcorn, take a seat, and just try to keep up. Also, for anyone that cares, spoilers are approaching, so if you do not want absolutely anything regarding appearances, fates of characters, or the ending spoiled, you may turn back now. No? You still want to watch the video? Oh, sweet. Well, what the fuck did Marvel do wrong this time? This film revolved around two things established in Marvel Comics: the multiverse and the Darkhold. One is more comprehensible than the other: multiverse. Now, where they went wrong was creating a weird symbiotic relationship between multiverse traversal and the Darkhold book itself. The Darkhold has forever been simply a book that serves as the holder of spells and incantations created by an elder god billions of years ago known as Chthon. A constant effect of the book's power is that it immediately corrupts the minds of anyone who reads its passages. Even just a mere gaze on the pages, corrupted, instantly, bad guy, now. There's a whole lot of lore behind it, but we'll keep it brief. There has never been a point in time where it granted the ability of any reader to be able to traverse the multiverse and inhabit the body of your multiverse counterpart. That shit, it doesn't exist. Now, another event that was prominent in this story's plot was the possibility of a multiverse incursion. Now, incursions, according to this film's explanation, is caused by an individual crossing into a different multiverse that isn't their own. This can eventually cause an incursion depending on the amount of times done or other factors more than likely. America Chavez, who possesses the ability to travel the multiverse, has done it numerous times. No one ever stops to mention that she likely caused an incursion or two on her own. They've once again rewritten the origin and reasoning for why incursions actually occur. They never occurred because of multiverse traversal. There was a single point in the multiverse timeline that created the first incursion, and that set into motion incursions that followed. They both introduced a significant event from the last 20 years in comics, and then did away with it all at once. Just a throwaway. The Darkhold itself has been nerfed compared to its comic iterations, but I guess that was Disney's stepping in, right? Am I surprised that Sam Raimi went with an evil book as his choice of Doctor Strange lore to mold the film around? No, I'm not even close. I am disappointed in his usage of the book and the lack of understanding of the lore itself, or even just a representation of the lore. As someone who has made the Necronomicon something of legend, but how the hell did Wanda even discover the Darkhold? The Darkhold has been passed around the MCU adjacent television shows like some sort of cheap town tricycle. Agatha just arrives with it in WandaVision, and then Wanda just pulls up to the Multiverse of Madness, already in possession of the book. I shouldn't need to watch 3 separate shows to follow how such an intricate plot device arrived to this point. No mention of the book being the conduit for an ancient evil elder god. None of it. Why is this incredibly powerful book filled with ancient evil spells and incantations so ridiculously susceptible to being completely disintegrated by a simple steel knife that's piercing it? Such a cheap way to extend the film by another 35 minutes. Wanda in the comics was able to absorb the entirety of the Darkhold's power and influence and could manipulate it without becoming corrupted. Here, easily corrupted. She's committed far worse atrocities and has been dealing with years of guilt and trauma far surpassing the MCU version, and yet she was able to control it. The Darkhold now has the property to also transcend the multiverse, as opposed to strictly other dimensions, as it always has. For what reason? 'Cause MCU, that's why. Oh god. The constant snarking about Wong being the Sorcerer Supreme was old after the first fucking joke. I'm not kidding you. That was probably the most annoying thing to have to rehash over and over and over again. We get it. Stephen Strange is not the Sorcerer Supreme, but is still the most powerful sorcerer. But let's just keep referring to Wong as being the Sorcerer Supreme, right? Because we didn't understand it the first 4 times. After the 5th one, and seeing Wong do jack shit, and only conjuring mediocre magic weapons, it was sad. I don't think a magical rope dart is exactly becoming of the Sorcerer Supreme. I swear he's become the new Nick Fury, always appearing everywhere and for some reason being involved in multiple storylines and conflicts, shaking hands with people in other films, sending people every which way. I don't understand what the obsession is with having Wong everywhere. It's actually becoming a terrible joke. Do not get me wrong, Benedict Wong is a great actor, and he does bring a good balance of levity and seriousness at times. But it's becoming overkill that he's anywhere and everywhere, while also being a side character. Keeping in turn with weird character development, Wanda's WWF heel turn was completely uncalled for, and it also ruined her character's development completely. You mean to tell me that Wanda was so distraught over losing her imaginary kids that she doesn't even bother to try and find a multiverse that still has a living Vision and Pietro? You know, her dead synthetic boyfriend and her twin brother, both murdered? Nah, who cares about them, right? Not Wanda, clearly. Wasn't even mentioned a single time, guys. They don't fucking exist anymore. Trending on the list of things that didn't make sense in the film, the Illuminati. I had an issue with the Illuminati's inclusion altogether. I don't think it was needed. I don't think they should have done it. Here's why. The Illuminati itself was an interesting inclusion in name, but it wasn't anything like the actual Illuminati that anyone actually does care about in the comics. Am I surprised that they included Captain America slash Carter and Captain Marvel? No, not at all. That was pure fan service. Though it doesn't make any sense to have Captain America in the Illuminati. The Illuminati's creation in the comics that everyone reads, and where they pulled the idea of the Illuminati from, was a group of the smartest minds in all of the Marvel Universe, brought together to make the decisions no one else could. They are meant to be analytical and make decisions based on numbers only. No emotions, no morals. That's why in the comics the Illuminati shot the Hulk into space. Yeah, they shot the Hulk into frickin' space, guys. This is why Captain America wasn't included in the original Illuminati, and why Charles Xavier decided to abandon the Illuminati. It's also why Tony Stark was on it. This Illuminati, in this multiverse, doesn't even make sense. This is supposed to be a council of the most intelligent minds in the Marvel Universe, but you add a Captain Carter and Captain Marvel, who, by the way, seems to bear a striking resemblance to Monica Rambeau, who happens to have the same power set as Captain Marvel, and Monica Rambeau is a existing character in the 616. I still don't understand that this was the way that they wanted to introduce one of the most powerful and influential groups in all of Marvel lore, and then immediately trash them in one foul swoop. Wanda's dispatching of the group in mere minutes was at times ridiculous in the worst ways, and then maybe fun in one or two instances. But for the life of me, I still cannot fathom Reed Richards being introduced as the smartest man in the universe, and then attempting to shoulder palm one of the most powerful beings to ever exist, and then also revealing Black Bolt's actual power and how it works. This man is the smartest in your universe? Come on. Come on, man.
Come on. Come on, folks.
Even if, I'll play devil's advocate here, even if he knows that his universe's Wanda is not a credible threat, at least make mention of that to explain why he'd do something so idiotic after witnessing her literally seal a man's mouth shut with dark magic. Come on, man. Make it make sense. Captain Marvel dying to falling debris while she's empowered with cosmic energy. The same Captain Marvel who tanked an Infinity Gem powered Falcon Punch. This is what happens to her. And oh boy, Patrick Stewart making his appearance as Professor X. It was so heartwarming at first. But then he just receded into acting like some sort of senile old goat who was spouting off nonsensical motivational gibberish that had no application to this particular Stephen Strange. It was sad seeing my boy go down like that. I'm gonna miss him. But by far, one of the biggest question marks that was raised was the confirmation that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, the past decade of films and shows that we've all watched, that we've all witnessed, all those are under the banner of the 616 universe. The same 616 universe that the comics follow, the ones that comic fans hold true, the ones that we use as references and examples as to why the MCU characters we have now are so lackluster in comparison. All we've been told was that the MCU was its own universe. It wasn't the 616. It wasn't following mainline comics. They were going to do their own thing in their own multiverse. And you know what? I was cool with that. I was cool with them acknowledging this isn't the 616. It took a while for them to acknowledge that, but they finally did. But now you want to confirm that this is the 616 universe? Nope. Hell no. No, you do not get to do that. So you know what this means? This means that every change to every event, every change to the properties of any object or entity, power sets for people, characterizations of people, and most importantly, gender and race swaps should now all be called out. The MCU stands don't have their number one defense anymore. Now that it's officially the 616 universe, you have nothing to hide behind. So that means every change that they made in the last 10 years was bullshit. But I'm getting off topic. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite multiverse traveling young heroine. To be clear, I wasn't on board with the rewriting of the actual origin of America Chavez's parents' deaths. The fate of her parents in the comics was much more tragic, detailed, and complex. They would have added to her character. There was enough there to create some established trauma she's dealing with that could affect her powers, and that could explain why she can't control them. But no, what this film decided to go with was much more absurd. They, in fact, replaced it with America accidentally opening up a multiverse portal as a child after being scared by a fucking bug, and her parents subsequently being pulled into the portal never to be seen again. Basically, this is a bullshit way to explain why America Chavez can only open portals when she's very, very scared. This in turn basically means it only happens when someone is about to meet their end. And then she farts out a big old portal from the sheer scariness. That's what we got instead. Superb writing right there, guys. Having a shit way to get your heroes out of any corner they get backed into. And it happens numerous times throughout the film. Sam Raimi, you're better than that, man. That was just bad writing. So, after exiting the theater, I simply thought, who was this film intended for? What audience was this film supposed to target? On one hand, you have a director whose style of directing was so heavy handed that Multiverse of Madness visually breaks away from what the MCU media looks like now. But it being a one off and being followed by the releases of She Hulk, Miss Marvel, and Echo means we're jumping right back into the same artificial carousel once again. Was this film for Raimi fans? Well, if you are a Sam Raimi fan, strictly, you aren't going to appreciate the clear direction his executive overlords forced on this film. It was pretty clear they had an agenda that they still had to get to, and despite what Sam Raimi may have wanted to do, there was still a general roadmap that he had to follow, and unfortunately, it kind of showed. Was this film for kids? Oh yeah, go ask Black Bolt. Oh wait, you can't because his fucking head exploded. The target demographic was all over the place. It's still gonna make money, but don't expect this kind of creative shift in direction to be something Disney is gonna continue allowing. Just remember they have shareholders that they have to suck off after all. So when it's all said and done, what do I actually rate this film? Well, it's a 6.5, if I'm being generous. My appreciation and love for Sam Raimi's influence is not enough to overlook the clear discrepancies in the film's plot, its mediocre script, and its complete upending of yet another character's development. There isn't a notable song or theme that I cared much for or stood out, and the final 20 minutes seemed rushed and left a lot to be desired. I love Sam Raimi, love the character of Doctor Strange in the comics, and I love Wanda's deranged warpath. It's too bad it didn't all come together in the film. And that was my review, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below. It really does help with the algorithm. And leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. Was I off on some things? Did you agree with some things? Just let me know. I need people to talk to. Till next time. Is that it? Yeah. Yeah, that's it.